Hello class 7. In our last video, we were discussing acid and bases. So we are not going to discuss that chapter now. First of all, we will discuss the structure of matter and then we will discuss acid and base. So let's start the chapter. So first of all, what do you mean by matter? What is matter? So look around in your room. What will you find? There are lots of things in your room like chair, table, books, pen. There are lots of things. So each and everything that is present in your room can be termed as matter. So what should be the definition of matter? Anything which occupies space and has mass is termed as matter. Just take an example of this book. This book is lying on the table. Yes, it is occupying some space. Is that clear? And if I weight it, it will definitely have some mass, right? So this book is also an example of matter. Even the air which we can't see is also an example of matter. Is that clear? So air also has mass and air also occupies space, because if you fill air in a balloon, yes, that balloon will become larger in size. So definitely it will occupy space. And if you measure the weight of empty balloon and the balloon filled with air, obviously the balloon which is filled with air will have a mass. So even the air around us which we can't see is also an example of matter. So what are the states of matter? Here is states, don't confuse with Assam, Gujarat or Maharashtra, not that state. State means sthiti or avastha, in Hindi we call it. So matter can either be in solid state, matter can either be in liquid state, matter can either be in gaseous state. Let's take an example. This table is a solid, right? So what is the state? It is in solid state. Water is a matter. So what is the state of water? It is in liquid state. And the air around us, yes, it is also a matter, as I've already told you. So air is in gaseous state. So is that clear? What is matter and what are the states of matter? Okay. Now, what are these matter? What is matter made up of? What is matter made up of? So in ancient sage, a great Indian sage means rishi in Hindi we call, or sadhu. So ancient same saint named Kanada. Okay, he was the first one, probably the first one to specify that matter is made up of very small particles. That means matter is made up of very small particles, and that small particles he called them anu. Is that clear? Now if you see your home, okay, but your home, if you see, your house is made by small bricks. Is that clear? So any big structure are made by very small structures. Okay. So if you take example of matter, it will obviously be, it is also made of very small particles, and that small particle he called them as anu. Now let's take an example. If you take a piece of paper and go on tearing that piece of paper into smaller and smaller parts, so a time will come when you'll be unable to tear that paper into further smaller pieces. So John Dalton, he was the scientist, he was the scientist who coined the term atom. He was the scientist who coined the term atom. So according to him, the smallest part of the matter, he termed it as atom. Like the smallest piece of paper which you will no longer be able to divide into any smaller pieces, so that will be termed as atom. So according to him, matter is made up of very small particles, which he called them as atom. And according to him, atom is indivisible. That means we cannot divide atom into smaller parts. It can be broken down into further smaller pieces. But today we know that atom is also divisible. And atom atom has subatomic particles. Those are proton, neutron, and electron. Is that clear? So we will discuss uh, later on. Okay, and you'll study all these proton, neutron, electron in class 9. Okay, so as we have already discussed that all the matters are made up of very small particles called atoms or molecules. So what is molecules, we will learn later on. So what is the definition of atom? What is the definition of atom? So atom is the smallest particle of substance which is composed of only one kind of particles. So we have already discussed that atom is the smallest particle of any substance or matter which is composed of only one kind of particle. So if you see in atom, we have only the three particles: proton, neutron, and electron. So atom atom may or may not exist independently. Means in some cases you will find atom existing independently. Means in simple language they exist alone. And in some cases you will find a atom combining with other atom. Okay, is that clear? So atom may exist as independent as alone also, and atom can also be found in a group in a combined state. Now what is molecule? Now let's come to molecules. So when two or more atoms they combine together, when two or more atoms combine together, so they form a molecule. Is that clear? So all the molecules of same substance are identical, are same. Is that clear? Means if you take a molecule of water, so that if you take two molecules of water, so a molecule of water, they both will be identical. Is that clear? So molecules of the same substance or same matter are identical. So now, is that clear what is matter? Then what are the states of matter? What is atom? What is molecule? I hope all this topic is clear. Now let's move to the next page. Okay, here we'll find a table. How are matter classified? So matter can be classified as pure substance and impure substance. Is it clear? So how are pure substance classified? Pure substance are classified as elements and compound. Is it clear? Now what are elements? Substance with only one type of atom. Substance with only one type of atom. Means if you take oxygen in an oxygen cylinder, is that clear? So you will find only the atoms of oxygen are present in that cylinder. So that oxygen will be termed as element. Now if you take gold, gold is composed of only the atoms of gold. So gold is also an element, silver is also an element. But compound substance with two or more elements, with a definite proportion are termed as compound. I'll give you the example of compound: water. Water is a compound because in water is composed of hydrogen and oxygen. And what does this mean in a definite proportion? Definite proportion in Hindi, proportion means anupat. Have you seen a mason preparing a mortar? Means, have you seen a Rajmistri? You know, we call him Rajmistri preparing the masala, that we call it mortar for building, you know, for joining the bricks. So he mixes cement, water, and sand in a definite proportion. Let's take example, if we take uh, three tin three tin full of sand, then he will mix full one tin full with cement, one full tin with cement. So what is the ratio? What is the ratio? 3 is to 1, cement and sand, that is 3 is to 1. So that is proportion. So in compound, are composed of two or more elements in a definite proportion. So in a definite proportion that we will discuss later on. So what can be the example of element? Oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, they are all example of element. And what are the example of compound? Carbon dioxide, salt, they are example of compound. Now, what is mixture? Substance with two or more element with no definite proportion. Example, the air around us. Okay, the air around us. So what are the composition of air? Nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, there are lots of gases. Okay, but if you see, the percentage of carbon dioxide will differ. In in our city, that is Tinsukia, there is less pollution, so carbon dioxide, the composition of carbon dioxide will be less. But if you go to some other metro cities, the composition of carbon dioxide is will be very high. So do you think that they are in definite proportion? No, they are not in definite proportion. The substance with two or more elements with no definite proportion are called as mixture. Is that clear? So oxygen is also an element, but in villages you'll find the level of oxygen is high in air. But if you go to some cities, you'll find the level of oxygen is low as compared to villages. So air is an example of mixture. Air gases. So we have already discussed what is element. So element is the simple form of pure substance. Element is a pure substance we have discussed earlier, which is made up of one kind of atom. It can't be broken down into simpler form by any physical or chemical means. So element, what is element? Element is the simple form of pure substance which is made up of one kind of atom. As I've already told you that if you take a cylinder full of oxygen gas, you will find only the atoms of oxygen present at that cylinder, in that cylinder. So oxygen will be termed as element because it is a pure substance. Now, do you think that we can break down oxygen into some simpler form? No, we can't. But we can break this compound. Just like I told you that water is a compound, so we can break. Water is composed of hydrogen and oxygen. So we can break a compound. We can break water into hydrogen and oxygen by some chemical process. But we can't break an element because element itself is a simpler form. Okay, so how many elements are known to us till date? 118 elements, not 117, 118 elements are known to us. Out of them 90 to no, 94. Okay, 94 are found in nature, means they exist naturally, and the rest are synthetic or man-made. So you can correct this. It will be 118 and it will be 94. So elements can exist in all these three matter, in all these three states. Sorry, it may exist in solid state, it may exist in liquid, it may exist in gaseous state. So here we have example of solid. So some of the elements which exist in solid state are gold, silver, sodium, potassium. Some of the examples of element which exist in liquid state is mercury and bromine. So mercury is actually a metal, the only metal which exists in liquid state at room temperature. And bromine is a liquid non-metal. The bromine is a liquid non-metal, so we can you can write it in a book. So gases. So those some examples of the element which exist in gases are oxygen, nitrogen, helium, hydrogen. These are all gases. Now, how can you classify elements? So further we can classify elements as metals and non-metals. Now what are metals? So metals are found in free and combined state in nature. Just take an example like gold, silver. They are actually found in free state. But if you take example of iron, iron is not found in free state. Is that clear? It is combined with oxygen. So metal can exist in free state or in combined state. Most of the metals are solid. Yes, most of the metal we can't say that all metals are solid because we have exception here. Mercury is in liquid state. So most of the metals are solid and are lustrous. Lustrous means chamak. Yes, metals are shiny. They are good conductor of heat and electricity. Yes, metal can conduct because the wire in your home are all made up of copper. Copper is a metal. They are good conductor of heat and electricity. Yes. uh, in kitchen, have you seen, if we put a stove, put a any pan over the stove, so what will happen, that we'll find that after some time the handle of that pan also becomes hot. Okay, heat, the base of the pan is being heated and the handle becomes hot. So it's because heat is easily flowing through that metal. So we can say that metals are good conductor of heat and electricity. So what can be the example of metal? Platinum, gold, silver, sodium, potassium. These are all example of metal. What are non-metals? So non-metal are found in free state as well as in combined state. Just like metals, they can also be found in free as well as in combined state in nature. They are they are the main constituent of air, water, rock on earth. So the what are the main constituent of air? Yes, in air, like oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide are present. So they are all non-metal. Is that clear? In sea, rocks and earth, these are all non-metals. So non-metal exists in solid and in gaseous state. They are dull. Dull means just like metals, they are not lustrous, means इनके ऊपर चमक नहीं होता. Is that clear? They are dull. They are bad conductor of heat and electricity. So electricity can't pass through and heat cannot pass through non-metal. But there is a non-metal which conduct electricity. So just find out. That will be your homework. Name a non-metal which conduct electricity. Find the answer. Now compound. Okay. Now many elements are already a pure substance, but most elements are not stable. Just take an example. When you go to school, you make friends. Okay, you don't go and sit alone. You have friends. There are also rare students who don't make friends, who don't like to talk. Okay, so majority of the students, they have friends, they have a group. Okay, you can't remain alone. Yes, you can't remain alone in school. You'll make friend obviously. So just like these metals, some of the elements, they can't exist independently. Okay, now why they can't exist independently, this you will come to know in higher classes. So metals they tend to what, combine with other element. Okay, and when two and more elements combine, they form a compound. I have given you an example of compound water. Water is composed of hydrogen and oxygen. So here two elements, hydrogen and oxygen, they combine and then form a compound. So what will be the definition of compound? A compound is a substance made up of two or more elements chemically combined together in a fixed proportion. Yes, that is very important. Fixed proportion. I have already explained what does fixed proportion means. Is that clear? I have given you the example of how a mason prepares a mortar. Yes, he doesn't mix, five tin of sand and just one tin of cement. So what will happen? The building will collapse. So there is a fixed proportion. Yes. So if we see water, if we take a molecule of water, you will find two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen. Is that clear? So what is the ratio here? 1 is to 2, means one atom of oxygen and two atom of hydrogen. So this is an example of compound. Is that clear? So what is compound? A compound is a substance made up of two or more elements. Two or more elements chemically combined together in a fixed ratio. They are combined in a fixed ratio. So the common example of compound is water. All the samples of compounds are identical in composition. Yes, their composition will remain same. Doesn't matter if you take a sample of water from India and the other sample from other country. You'll always find the composition of water is same. That means two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen. A compound does not show the properties of constituent and are not broken into constituent by simple method. Let's let's see. So a compound does not show the properties of its constituent. Now I have already told you what are the constituent of water, hydrogen and oxygen. What are the constituent of water, hydrogen and oxygen? So you know hydrogen is highly inflammable, and oxygen is also a supporter of combustion. So hydrogen is the fuel which has highest calorific value. That means if you light a matchstick near hydrogen, it will explode. But these two, when they combine, they make water, and water don't catches fire. Okay, so a compound does not show the properties of constituent element. What are the constituent element of water, hydrogen and oxygen? So do you think that they are showing their properties? Because hydrogen is highly inflammable, it will easily catch fire. But here hydrogen is not showing its property and are not broken into constituent element by simple method. Now we all know that what is made of hydrogen and oxygen. Now if I tell you to separate hydrogen and oxygen, can you separate it by simple method? Like at home we can separate tea and tea leaves by using a strainer, right? Now is it possible to separate water, hydrogen and oxygen by filter paper? No, we can't. By simple method we can't separate this hydrogen and oxygen. We have to go through some chemical process. Okay, we can separate them by a method called electrolysis, though we can separate them. So by simple method we cannot separate hydrogen and oxygen. So is that clear?